Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and we're going to talk a little bit about Chuck Grassley today. If you've been following my videos, about 2 weeks ago, you can go to my channel page, and about 2 weeks ago, I did one called Tenacious Grassley and HRC's Emails, because he's still asking for information about Hillary Clinton's emails. It's not dead yet, folks. He's still trying to get answers. And the letter that I showed you then, actually I showed you several letters in that all had to do with him trying to get to the truth. He's been working since 2016 to try to find the answers. Well, his last letter was in October, and he was still trying to get some answers. And a report came out from the State Department about these emails and about how there were violations of the security protocol for several of these emails. And this was an investigation done by the Department of State. So Pompeo sent it to him. Well, Grassley wants more answers because it raised questions that he couldn't find the answers to. And this is what he's been driving at all along. And you know Grassley, what he likes to do is write a letter and say, here are the things I want answered. And then they come back and they give half answers. And he goes, no, I want these answers. He's a very tenacious patriot. Anyway, so this was a letter that was on November 4th, and I want to thank Monkey GP for pointing this out to me. I really appreciate when you guys do that. And so here's what he has to say. I'm going to read part of it. The Honorable Mike Pompeo is who he's sending it to. Dear Secretary Pompeo, I appreciate you sending me the department's review of the security violations that occurred with respect to Secretary Clinton's use of a non-government server for government business. The review provided Congress and the public much-needed transparency with respect to the 91 valid security violations by 38 people and an additional 497 security violations in which culpability could not be determined. All of those violations occurred because Secretary Clinton chose to operate a non-government server for official business and failed to show security protocols. Some of the classified information that was exposed to unclassified systems was classified at the top secret special access program level, which put national security at risk. As I made clear during my October 28, 2019 speech on the Senate floor, mishandling classified information should be a bipartisan issue that is managed with equal application of the law without regard to power, party, or privilege. In addition, as I noted in my floor speech, then Director Comey and the FBI claimed that they did not find evidence of criminal intent and included that no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute the case. However, your department's review found instances in which State Department officials, quote, deliberately transmitted classified information via unclassified email, unquote. That finding seems to be at odds with the FBI and requires additional explanation. Further, a text message sent by Peter Strzok on June 28, 2016 indicates that Secretary Clinton and President Obama communicated via email while she used her non-government email address for official business. Yep, he sure did. And this was the Peter Strzok text message. Jim, I have the POTUS HRC emails. D requested, and they say that D is Comey for Director Comey. At end of briefing yesterday, I hesitate to leave them. Please let me know a convenient time to drop them off. Generally, communications between the president and other cabinet-level officials are of a very sensitive and classified nature. The failure to safeguard classified information by exposing it to unclassified systems without proper authority puts national security at risk. Accordingly, to better understand how the State Department undertook its review and what sanctions were imposed against those officials who were found to have violated security protocols, please answer the following questions. And he's put the deadline of November 19th on that. So we have the State Department identified 91 security violations attributable to 38 people. What are the names and titles of these officials? For each official, what sanction was imposed and at what level was the mishandled information classified? That's what we were all asking when we read the other one, right? The State Department identified an additional 497 security violations where culpability could not be identified. Please explain in greater detail why culpability could not be identified and at what level was the mishandled information classified. Okay, how can they not know who mishandled that classified information? In 497 cases? I mean, really, that's a lot. The State Department found that some of its officials, quote, deliberately transmitted classified information via unclassified email. What are the names and titles of these officials? At what level was the mishandled information classified? And has the State Department referred any of them to the Justice Department for potential prosecution? If not, why not? The review noted that some officials were not interviewed. Please list each individual that was not interviewed and the reason why. Please provide all email communications between Secretary Clinton and President Obama, including those emails referenced by the struck text. In addition, in your written response, please note the classification level of those emails and whether they were part of the security review. Okay, so he is still at it. He still wants the answers, and he's not going to stop until he gets them. So he really is working on this. Now, I do want to give you the speech that he gave here. This was pretty good, and he will reiterate some of the things that he put in that letter. But I think he does a good job on it. He does talk a little slow, so you might want to do the double speed thing on this. But I also want to apologize for the quality of it because my internet has been really weird today, and when I was recording it, it kind of glitched out. So I'm going to try to edit it and make it not be bad, but there might be a few places where it glitches a little. And it's just, the internet was just being a pain in the behind today. So let me play this for you, and then I'll come back and cap it up.
In March of 2015, I began our long investigation into Secretary Clinton's use of non-government email for official business. Since then, I have written hundreds of letters, held hearings, and discussed my findings and concerns right here on the Senate floor. After all, the public's business ought to be public. Today, we can add more findings to that ongoing list of Secretary Clinton's and her associates' wrongful conduct. The other week, I released a report from the State Department that finalized their administrative review of how Secretary Clinton's private server set up caused hundreds of security violations. That review found, I think, 5 things I'm going to mention. First, 91 valid security violations were identified and attributable to 38 individuals. That means 38 individuals mishandled classified information and were punished for it. The sanctions for a violation included suspension or revocation of their security clearance, suspension without pay, or termination, among other forms of punishment. Second, an additional 497 valid violations were identified. However, the State Department was unable to determine who was culpable. State Department was unable to identify culpability because some former department employees didn't sit for interviews, or because Secretary Clinton kept her server secret from government officials, so it was impossible for the department to monitor security protocol in real time. The review also noted that there was a 5 to 9 year gap between beginning of Secretary Clinton's State Department tenure, when the security incidents began, and when she finally turned over the emails, which she initially refused to do. This many years long gap made it very challenging to determine who was culpable for every violation of regulation and law covering national security issues and the need for classification. In total, Secretary Clinton's use of non-government server for government business caused 588 security violations for mishandling classified information. Some of that classified information was classified at the very highest levels, including top secret, special access program information. According to the FBI, Secretary Clinton sent and received emails that contained highly classified information. Now, it's hard to fathom how this wouldn't undermine our national security. If the average American did that, they'd lose their clearance, their job, and might even go to jail. That's what happened to Navy sailor Christian Saucier. He took 6 photographs inside a submarine that exposed information classified at the confidential level. He mishandled classified information. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 1 year in federal prison. So people ask me, how come some people go to prison for violating classification and other people don't? Let's go to the third point. The review found Secretary Clinton's non-governmental server increased the risk of unauthorized disclosures. Fourth, the review found that the non-government servers increased the risk of security compromise. Clinton's private server setup had been described as being so badly secured that it's almost impossible to detect who attempted to attack it and gain access to it. Anyone could have done it. Fifth and last, the review found that some classified information was deliberately transmitted via unclassified emails and resulted in adjudicated security violations. Many in the press, as well as partisan Clinton defenders, have hung their hat on the State Department's finding that there was, quote, no persuasive evidence of systemic, deliberate mishandling of classified information, end of quote. Take, for example, the newspaper Washington Post. Their headline, quote, State Department probe of Clinton email find no deliberate mishandling of classified information, end of quote. Well, that headline was entirely wrong. The State Department report said, quote, instances of classified information being deliberately transmitted via unclassified emails were the rare exception and resulted in adjudicated security violations, end of quote. That statement clearly says some individuals deliberately transmitted classified information on unclassified systems. Those individuals were subject to security sanctions, but the State Department failed to describe who the violators were and what the sanctions were. Those answers ought to be forthcoming, so consequently, you know my reputation, I intend to follow up. Ensuring the proper handling of highly classified information is an issue that should garner bipartisan support. This may sound like history, but there's a lesson to be learned from this history that classified information should be classified for protecting national security. Furthermore, if government officials deliberately expose classified information on an unclassified system, why didn't the FBI find the same during their investigations? We all know Then Director Comey refused to recommend any charges related to the Clinton investigation because the FBI could not identify the requisite criminal intent. Now, it seems to me that deliberately sending classified information on unclassified channels is intentional conduct. Again, if the average American did that, they'd be in big, big trouble, as I pointed out about the Navy sailor spending 1 year in prison. Now, during the course of my oversight activities, I acquired drafts of Comey's July 5th, 2016 public statement exonerating Clinton. Comey's initial draft stated the following. Now, this is the initial draft. Quote, "There is evidence to support a conclusion that Secretary Clinton and others used the private email server in a manner that was grossly negligent with respect to the handling of classified material," end of quote. Comey also said this, quote, "Similarly, the sheer volume of information that was properly classified as secret at the time it was discussed on email, that is, excluding the up-classified emails, supports an inference that the participants were grossly negligent in handling of that information," end of Comey quote. Gross negligence, the words used by Comey, is a criminal standard under Title 18, Section 793. Now, he later dumbed down his statement to a non-criminal standard, quote, "Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information," end of quote. And that was before he finished the investigation and interviewed 17 witnesses, including Secretary Clinton. Director Comey never once said that some individuals deliberately sent classified information on an unclassified system. According to the State's Department's findings, Comey should have come to that conclusion and made that statement. Clearly, deliberate conduct rises beyond gross negligence. So who deliberately sent unclassified information on Let me start over again. So who deliberately sent classified information on unclassified channels, and has the department communicated this new finding to the FBI? Just last week, I spoke on this floor about how the FBI pulled its punches during the Clinton investigation. I talked about how the FBI agreed to limit the scope of review to her time as Secretary of State. That decision eliminated potentially highly relevant emails before and after her tenure that could have been shed light on why she operated the non-government server. It also eliminated emails around the time of the conference call between Clinton's attorneys and the administrator of her server that led to the deletion of her emails. That limitation of scope defies reason. And lastly, the FBI agreed to destroy records and laptops of Clinton's associates after reviewing them. That's an astonishing agreement in light of the fact that those records could have been relevant to ongoing congressional inquiries that the FBI knew about. Secretary Clinton's actions caused 588 security violations and highly classified information to be exposed to a non-classified system. Some of those violations were very deliberate, but that's the first that we've heard of it. The public ought to know if those folks involved were punished according to the letter of the law or were given special treatment. Equal application of the law without regard to power, party, or privilege ought to be the norm. With what we know up to this point, the Clinton investigation failed to hit its mark.
So yeah, did you catch that near the end where he said the FBI destroyed some of the stuff? I didn't know that. When he was saying this, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I had to play it back again because I was like, really? He just said that they destroyed it. And I didn't know that they did destroyed records. Now, what that means, I'm not sure exactly what records it would have been, but he said it was records of the associates. So kind of makes you wonder on that. Anyway, he did a really good job putting things together, and, you know, he's tenacious, folks. He's going to be keeping at it until it gets done. That one point that he said in there where it was like, you know me, I'm not going to let this go. So he won't, and that's part of everything that's going on here. There are so many different aspects of this that have to be approached all from different angles. And I think that's what's really happening, even though we're not seeing it. Because yes, we have the FISA abuse report that's going to be coming out from Inspector General Horowitz, and we have the Durham report or prosecutions, which hopefully will happen, indictments. And those are part of it, but there's more to it than just that. There's corruption like crazy. And the big part of this Clinton email scandal, it's all part of it all. They were all together because it was a focused attempt to get Hillary Clinton elected. And when that failed, then the attempt turned to a coup. And that's what they've been trying to implement. And every time they try something, it keeps backfiring on them. You know, they tried the dossier and it backfired. And then they tackled Flynn and that didn't work either. And Trump's still just going right along and they haven't been able to stop him. And that's what really ticks them off. Because remember, more and more I see it this way, that it's these unelected officials, career politicians who believe that they are the only hope for this country and that they alone are the ones who keep our country from destruction. And if they are not allowed to make their decisions like they're supposed to, then the country is going to be destroyed. And I really think they believe this. Now, whether they're all SES or not, I don't know, but I do believe that there are some who are not corrupt. Okay, not all SES people are corrupt, but I do think a majority are. Obama put a whole big bunch in there. I think he put like 8,000 or 9,000 in during his time. So yeah, he put in quite an army, and that's what Trump and his administration are dealing with. I have no doubt that most of them are deep state players, but I don't even know if a lot of them know who they're working for. I think they are just indoctrinated with this idea that presidents come and go and they stay. So the fate of the nation is in their hands. I think that's what they believe. Sad to say, isn't it? I didn't think our government would ever come to that. But anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.